the forest-based micro-entrepreneurship that we have discussed yesterday. So then today we'll discuss about, because we have very few classes to rush fast to complete our syllabus. So today we'll discuss about the ecotourism, which is a very major prominent tourism sector throughout the globe. We'll discuss about the ecotourism, a kind of major concern throughout the globe. See, all of you are very much aware about exactly what is tourism and what is tourist. So you see, if you look at this kind of the tourism specifically, the tourism is a major sector throughout the globe which brings lots of revenue to any state or any government, any country. And every country, each and every country tries their level best to promote the tourism. Through that, they can expose their kind of culture, their heritage to others. And by showing their culture and heritage, they can also earn revenue and develop a sense of international relationship. And within the state, we also develop the interstate relationship by developing this tourism. See, if you look at this, the International Union for Official Travel Organization, now which is mostly known as World Tourism Organization, WTO, has defined the tourist specifically is a temporary visitor. Who is the tourist? A tourist is a temporary visitor. Usually, the tourist stays for at least 24 hours in a particular place. So that means if you are visiting in a particular place, sparing few hours and coming back, you will be not considered as a tourist. But what WTO defines that a tourist has to stay at least for 24 hours in a place, then only he will be called as a tourist. So most of the time we go to some nearby places, conduct some picnic and come back. So generally we will be not called as a tourist. We will be not called as a tourist, because sometimes we are a bit confused whenever we go for picnic and we claim that we are a tourist. No, exactly, whenever we are going for picnic, that is different. That is not considered a tourist. So, or tourism. So that's why you see now, whenever we are going and staying somewhere for 24 hours, and for what purpose we are going? Either we are going for holidays, leisure purpose, or health purpose, study purpose, religion purpose, sports purpose, business, family, meetings, whatever we are going, that will be considered as a, on the basis of any purpose, whatever I told. So if you look into the tourism, the tourism is divided into various kind of tourism are there. There are lots of tourism are there. One is considered as medical tourism, religious tourism, then your regional tourism, then village tourism, health tourism, tribal tourism, ecotourism. Then we have a coastal tourism also. Then we have a commercial space tourism also there. The mountain tourism is there, domestic tourism there, international tourism is there. Then you will find the sex tourism is there. So there are lots of tourism is there. So, and specifically if you look into all this tourism, the very interesting thing is that almost all the kind of states in the, if you look into the Indian context, are all trying to promote their tourism. And if you look into the view of our late Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru, he considered that the tourist actually is an ambassador. Who is tourist? Tourist is an ambassador of foreign countries, and tourism is a gateway for the developing diplomacy. So look into what actually when the India got the independence also, along with the rural development, or the then Prime Minister led Jawaharlal Nehru, he first gave huge demand and huge importance on tourism, because he was telling that a tourist is considered as an ambassador for the foreign countries, and also tourism is a gateway of developing the diplomacy. If you look into now, if you look into our present Prime Minister also, in order to promote tourism, What he did, he now you look into when Sushma Swaraj ji was our foreign minister, she developed such a kind of that. You see now the passport process becomes very simple. In every most of the head post office of all the districts you can get the passport, and also even regarding your visa, now most of the countries having developed a relationship with India is having on arrival visa, e-visa. All this process slowly started, and which has makes the things very simple. What is the intention? To make the diplomacy, that is means developing the international relationship within us. And if you look at the domestic also, see, in India, when we have the government employees used to go to the electricity, so the government has promoted that Andaman, then if you look into the Jammu Kashmir, northeastern states, all these things, in lieu of your home state visit, you can visit all these states. And what is the intention? Because it will help that to the people from other states to visit these states, specifically the people who are having very negative approach toward the Jammu Kashmir, because they always feel that Jammu Kashmir is always in a kind of disturbed state. So now, once we develop such a kind of opportunity, then which is encouraging the people to go those places and interact with the local communities of that states, which will bind the relationship and will develop a sense within the communities living in those states that we are the part of India and the other parts of the Indians are very much helpful to the people of this region, and those states will develop through promoting tourism, because we have ample of opportunity to promote the tourism in our country. And you see, because the tourism should be a holistic, it should not be very area specific, because you see most of the time what happens, the government usually spends the money in promoting the golden triangle, because you see whenever any foreign tourist came, specifically you see whenever any foreign tourist came, the foreign tourist used to be confined which part of the India, anybody, which part of the India usually the foreign tourist visit? Which part of India the foreign tourists usually visit? Mostly they confine themselves.
Goa.
Goa. Anybody else? Okay. So most of the tourists used to be confined to specifically the Taj Mahal. They used to visit this Golden Triangle, Delhi, Agra, and Jaipur. The mostly they confined into that region basically, and the government has spent huge money for promoting. And now, if you look into, no doubt, foreign tourists love to go to the Goa, but the major tourists are confined to this region. So, if you look into the overall growth, it is the high time of the central government and also of all the state government to promote the tourism in a very uniform way. So now you look into when this Raman temple construction is going on, the government's intention is also is uh, to build in such a way that it will attract also people, that people will, whoever will visit India, the Taj Mahal, rather they will also have an interest to go to the Ram temple. So what I'm telling, and you see, even we develop the tourism in Sardar Vallabhbhai statue is built in Gujarat, and we are promoting also tourism there. And sometimes it becomes a very controversy in different states, because all the states are promoting the different mechanism of tourism, and sometimes it becomes a very controversy that we are spending huge money in building so and so things. So what the ultimately the state will get. But you see, we have to always think about the future, irrespective of state, irrespective of political ideology, irrespective of parties and all. We have to promote the tourism for all the states, and our thrust should be that holistic development. Even in some of my paper also long back I criticized even the state of Odisha, that if you look into the state of Odisha, we have lots of opportunity for the tourism development in Western Odisha. But if you look into this kind of the entire the budget of the state governments, most of the time the government is spending huge money for promoting the tourism in the coastal Odisha and specifically confining to the Puri, Konark and Bhubaneswar. So it is high time that we have to spend the money for the regional development, promoting the tourism in throughout the state, through that the state can promote as a whole. Because if we spend the money on all regional developments, because you see the main intention is wherever we promote the tourism in a particular space, in order to promote the tourism we are developing other infrastructure, we are developing road communication, hotel industry, then starting of other infrastructural facilities in that locality which will help the local communities also. So that's why we have to think of a holistic and holistic promotion of the tourism, not a region specific promotion of the tourism. So that will be the best idea to develop the tourism. So, and if you look into the all this tourism, and within them tourism, it usually attracts a very specific people. Suppose look into the very concept of tribal tourism. The peoples who are having interest in tribals, they may look for the going for a tribal region and have a look into the tribal culture, their language, and all these things. So that is can be considered the form of tribal tourism. And suppose somebody is having a kind of interest in the rural, they may go for a rural tourism and all. Suppose somebody is having an issue with the medical, they may go for a medical tourism. But if that you will find that in religious tourism, the people who are mostly very much religious or they are very old peoples, they usually love to go for the religious tourism. But if you look at the ecotourism is a major space which used to attract the people irrespective of age, irrespective of gender, because this is a major source which attract everybody. I'll just give an example. Suppose whenever we are visiting, we will interact with the people who are visiting Puri. And if you just ask the people what for you are visiting, you will see that majority of the peoples belongs to the old age group. They will tell that because of Jagannath temple we visit, and mostly they will, you will find that they have an attraction to the sea beach for which they visited. So what I'm telling is, and also if you ask the old people what was your second option of visiting Puri, they will tell that both Jagannath second option is this sea beach. So what I'm telling, irrespective of age group, the ecotourism is a major chunk of tourism which attract the people to the uh, that locality. And you see, if you look at this specifically, we'll discuss about ecotourism. See, if you look at this present scenario of post-COVID and COVID period, it is the only one sector which is very, very affected. It is throughout the globe, because as you see now, most of the countries throughout the globe have still not using any tourism visa on the purpose of tourism, and almost all the tourism sectors are completely closed. And specifically look into the hotel industry has been collapsed, the tourism industries are, because the hotel industry is linked to the tourism. If the tourism sector is completely closed, because now the people's movements are very much restricted, almost even most of the countries are still in the locked form. So, and the tourism is highly affected in the post-COVID period. And we have to think about that how, because it is a major source of income for different countries, because there are few countries whose complete economy is based on the tourism. If the tourism will collapse, then those countries will completely collapse. So look at Thailand. Thailand is a country which mostly depends on ecotourism, because they are major source of revenue generally, but they don't have other resources. They have only resources of some few natural resources which helps them in promoting the ecotourism. If during this post-COVID period and COVID period have completely stopped this tourism promotion and have stopped in attracting the tourists to visit those sites, which has drastically affected their country's economy. So means if we want to enhance, if we want to go ahead with the, and if we want to enrich the country's economy, it is high time that we should think about the giving importance to the tourism. And specifically now, if you look into the ecotourism has taken a major space in the midst of all tourism because it is the a major source of revenue for the entire country of different countries. So that's why it is high time to look into that what exactly the ecotourism and how it is being implemented, what are the major problems are being affected, we are facing in the context of ecotourism. Whenever we are telling ecotourism, what are the major problems we are specifically facing in the context of ecotourism? That also we have to think about. So you see, if you look at this concept of ecotourism, the concept of ecotourism was first coined by a Mexican environmentalist, that is Hector Savalor Lascurian. So he in 1983 first coined the term ecotourism. He was initially used to describe it as a nature-based travel to quite undisturbed areas with an importance on the education. Because actually, what was his intention to tell this about the ecotourism and all? He was telling about the visiting to a nature. It is nothing but a nature-based travel. So most of the time, when we are telling about the ecotourism, we are a bit confused that ecotourism is nothing but a nature-based tourism. It is an environmental tourism, whatever you can tell. So the main intention is, what is the main intention of this ecotourism? The main intention is preserving the natural beauty and generating the revenue through these beauties is the main thrust of the tourism. Because what is the main intention of ecotourism? To preserve, to conserve the natural resources, to conserve the natural beauties. And while conserving the natural beauties, while preserving the natural resources, the main thrust is to and also the revenue. It is not only that we are conserving and preserving the resources, we are also generating the revenue, because unless and until we generate the revenue, we cannot sustain. So our main intention is that we have to, by using our natural beauty, we can attract others. And you see, it completely depends upon also how you are advertising, how you are promoting the tourism, because unless and until you advertise properly, it will be quite difficult to attract also tourists. I'll give just an example. So the way back, so long back, I visited the Kuala Lumpur, and the moment I get down at the airport, I saw that there is a hoarding everywhere. It is mentioned that don't miss an opportunity of visiting world's largest bird park. Even whenever, even whenever I catch the local train, or even whenever I catch the local bus, everywhere, and the bus in the backside of the bus, in the train, inside the train, outside the train, everywhere it was mentioned an opportunity of visiting world's largest bar park. So I was a tourist who visited this country and put an interest that yes, I should be part of this as a visitor. I should not miss an opportunity of visiting world's largest bar park. For the moment I visited, and I found that there are lots of centuries, lots of zoos in India which are thousand times better, having more birds within our park and within our zoos, which is very very rare there. So, but the way they promote matters a lot. The way they attracted the tourist matters a lot. So that's why, if we want to really promote the tourism, we have to look into the methods of advertisement, the methods of attracting the tourists, because that unless and until we attract able to attract the tourist, unless and until we mm, convince the tourists, so then it will be quite difficult to promote the tourism. So, and specifically in the context of ecotourism, because now you see, specifically, I will tell you in the post-COVID periods, the ecotourism will be considered the major chunk which will attract most of the tourists, because you see now almost 1 year has gone, and completely 1 year is gone, that people are mostly living inside their houses. They're not getting an opportunity to come out of the houses, and they are mostly the quarantine kind of things. They're inside in the house. They're not exposed to the education. They're not exposed to the most of the office. Their social relation is completely disturbed. So now it is high time, if we can develop such this ecotourism, and if we promote the ecotourism, because the most all the people will have an will have an interest to visit such the nature-bound areas where they can stay for a longer period as a quarantine, as if in isolatedly, and they can enjoy the beauty of the nature, because that will be the only source which can give the relaxation to your minds. So that's why the people who has already gone for depression, who has already gone for kind of stress because of this COVID, so if they opt for this ecotourism and visit some kind of site and stay for a longer period, that will give them a mental relief. So that's why it is high time to look into these things in a very vibrantly. It is also creating if you look in this ecotourism, it is also creating an economic opportunity to the local peoples, because if you promote the ecotourism, specifically the ecotourism is nothing but a nature-based tourism, and specifically we are promoting in the natural areas, natural greeneries in the name of ecotourism. And if you promote this ecotourism, specifically it will promote the local communities, it will promote some of the unreachable areas of our country where ultimately the local communities will be benefited. So because we can involve the local community in also the kind of preserving and conserving the natures, and also at the same time it will also help to the locals peoples to getting the better environment and all. So specifically, if you look at this kind of the main thrust of this ecotourism also, their main thrust is conserve the biological and cultural diversities by strengthening the protected areas management system. Because if we strengthen the protected areas of the kind of different forest region and different natural scenery, then what will happen? It will conserve the biological and cultural diversities. Because you see, once we want to promote an area, and then we can conserve the biological sceneries, biological heritage, and also the lots of cultural diversities can be also protected there. And we can promote the sustainable use of the biodiversities, because through conservation, through preservation, we can promote the sustainable use of biodiversities by generating the income, job, business opportunity in ecotourism and related business network also. So we should go for how we can generate the income, how we can generate the, because once we promote the ecotourism, we will be able to generate the not only the income of the local, also will create an employment opportunity for them, will create an employment, will create an opportunity for the business also, because either the local people can be engaged in the business, or the outsider can go and start their business. Because once you promote ecotourism in a particular site, it will promote the hotel industry, which will give lots of employment opportunity. And we'll also come to discuss about the problem and prospect. Then we'll discuss about what exactly the reality happening after the promotion of ecotourism. But these are the main thrust of ecotourism: promoting the preserving and conserving the natural beauties, and also managing the biological system, conserving the biological and cultural diversities, and also promoting the job and employment opportunities and generating the income. And another thrust is we are trying to share the benefits of ecotourism equally among all the members. Because whenever we are trying to promote the tourism, we are not only generating the revenue, in enhancing the employment opportunity, through all these things, we are trying to provide the guide this equitable opportunity to the local communities. So then if you look at the principle of ecotourism, you'll understand what are the major principle of ecotourism. It is major principle is to minimize the negative impact on culture, then the damage destination. So you see what exactly happened when we are developing the ecotourism in a particular area. We have an apprehension that the outside intervention may destroy the local culture, may destroy the local language, may destroy the local religion. So then the main thrust of we also kept as a principle of ecotourism that how to minimize this negative impact, because whenever anything are being developed in a particular area, it will have a both positive and negative impact. So 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 we have to think about that how we can minimize this negative impact. Then how we can educate the peoples. That is also one of the principle, because you see, in the name of ecotourism, we invited lots of the peoples, and their intervention to a particular site, it may disturb the habitats of the animals, it may disturb the life of those animals and birds. So we should also be very much careful about them. When we are inviting the tourist to a particular ecotourism site, we should educate the traveler on the importance of conservation and importance of maintaining silence. Because generally what happens whenever we go to a particular site, suppose we went to visit to a bird sanctuary, suppose we visited a tiger reserve, and if we huge music system there. We create lots of sounds. Then we cooked food and made that environment dirty and don't maintain the hygienic condition. So it will definitely will have an impact on the tigers living in that forest. So that's why we should not disturb them. We should not. We should because the main intention is whenever we are defining an area as a natural park or as a bird sanctuary or wildlife sanctuary, or we are declaring as a forest as a kind of tiger reserve now. The main intention is to conserve, to preserve those particular animals, those particular birds, or those particular cultural heritages. So once our monuments, so you see, once our intention is to preservation, when our intention is conservation, when our intention is to go for a natural regeneration of all forest resources and local biodiversity, we should not do anything which will hamper, which will have a mix. So we should educate the travelers and the tourists that as your intervention, you should not disturb this. You should cooperate and all. Then stress the importance responsible business which works cooperatively. We should work that how we can promote the business. So because our main intention is also generate revenue and provide local employment opportunity to the locals. So that's why we should also give importance on business. But while doing the business, we have to look into that what kind of opportunity we should develop which will meet the demands of the locals, how the locals requirement can be met, and whether this business and all these things have destroyed the locals' demands, whether the localites are being involved in this business. So can this government think of some kind of plan and program through which the government can give certain loan for entrepreneurship, and the forest-based micro entrepreneurship can be done in the ecotourism sites. Like through that, the local handicrafts can be sold at the sites so that they can also generate some kind of income for them, and direct revenue to the conservation and management of natural and protected areas. So how we can generate revenue also? Because through ecotourism, how we can conserve, and from that conservation we can generate the revenue. We used to give emphasis to the need of regional tourism. So how we can manage the visitors entry, because you see there are, because generally you see every site has its own strength of accommodating the tourist. If in a particular place then the huge tourist will be intervened, then will leads to the over tourism, because now the recent concept has come up, the over tourism, and I am also trying to develop another concept called quarantine tourism. So you see, if you look at the over tourism, because you see now if you look at the Puri, Konark and Bhubaneswar, it has leads to the over tourism. Well, over tourism has also lots of negative impact on tourism. So when we are thinking about ecotourism, we should make such a plan and strategy which will avoid this over tourism. We should give emphasis on use of environmental and social baseline studies as well as long-term monitoring program to assess and minimize the impact. Because if we will not have a very long-term kind of study, if we will not have a long-term strategy for conservation and preservation of all these resources, then we cannot really promote the tourism. So we have to strive to minimize the economic benefits. We have to, because sorry, maximize the economic benefits. We have to works in such a way that the economic benefits should come to the peoples, because unless and until the economic benefits comes, nobody will put their interest in promoting the tourism. Because ultimately, you see, while local will help in promoting the tourism, how local will be involved in promoting tourism once they are being benefited. And our strategies should be in such a way that by we should promote the tourism in such a way that our involvement should be in such a way that which will help in promoting the local revenue and local livelihoods. Because if we fail in promoting the local life and livelihoods, then we cannot promote the tourism. So we have to seek that, we have to ensure that the tourism development limits the kind of the negative impact of this on local communities, on local cultures, because unless and until we minimize this impact, negative impact on the local communities and the local culture, then ultimately it will lead to social devastation, and it will in the future it will blame the nation that your promotion of tourism has destroyed the local culture and local language and so local culture also. So we should be very much careful about that, and we should be really rely on other infrastructural development, because uh, unless and until we develop the peripheral development, unless and until we develop the local infrastructural facilities, it is quite difficult to promote the ecotourism. So, and the ecotourism, the major intention is the conservation, preservation of the natural resources, and educate the people about the conservation also, because it is not only emphasizing on conservation and preservation, rather it creates an awareness, it educates the people, come forward, join your hands in conserving the nature, protecting the nature, preserving the natural resource, because unless and until we all join hands together in promoting, conserving, preserving the natural resources, it will be very difficult to go ahead and promote the tourism. So this is the overall about the thrust of and the principle of ecotourism, and we can discuss about the problems and prospects of ecotourism, and who are the stakeholders involved in the tourism, and how we can bring all these stakeholders in the ecotourism, through that the real problem of ecotourism can be removed and the real benefits of the ecotourism can be shared among all the stakeholders in the country, that we can discuss in the next class. So anybody is having any doubt till now?
No, sir.
So